after the transformation. A major ITDP activity was its inputs into Chennai's first pedestrian plaza at Pondi Bazaar. Before Awasthy tells us more about it, I must add here that I'm a lover of the pedestrian plaza myself. I stay not too far away from Pondi Bazaar, and on many evenings I have just gone for a stroll there, and it's lovely. You can see kids cycling, old people sitting in benches and chatting, people moving around in buggies, and many simply standing and enjoying the lights. Awasthy's work on the streets in Chennai, the Chennai Streets for People program, won the Ashton Award 2020 under the Sustainable Mobility category. It is important to move the city away from cars, she says. She further adds, Chennai should expand the space for a majority of its users rather than for car users alone. Awasthy has a bachelor's degree in architecture from Chennai and a master's in urban design from Cardiff University, UK. At ITDP, Awasthy leads the activity relating to policies and projects on better streets. She also helps to train city officials, engineers, and town planners. Before joining ITDP in 2014, Awasthy spent 4 years in Ahmedabad working with Dr. Bimal Patel on the Sabarmati Riverfront Development Project. Today, Awasthy will talk us on how we can have better cities through better streets. Over to Awasthy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ajit. It was such a pleasure to hear from you. And I'll just share my screen. Is it possible for me to share the screen? It says that...
hey, Bala, 1 minute. Bala, you have to make her a host, Bala.
Okay.
So until that happens, I'd really like to thank everybody at the Rotary Club for this fantastic opportunity to present the work that we've done in Chennai to all of you here. And I'd also like to especially thank Shamla Aunty as well as Mr. Madhu, who've been constantly following up with me and for giving me this fantastic opportunity. Let me try screen sharing once again. Is it possible for you to see my screen?
Yes, you are visible.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much. So I'd like to just start by very quickly talking to you about what we do. The Institute for Transportation and Development Policy, we are a global nonprofit organization that promotes sustainable, equitable, and inclusive cities by creating better streets, better public transportation, and better urban development. So as you can see on the screen, we're headquartered in Washington, D.C., but we have offices across the globe, from USA to Mexico City, to Brazil, China, Africa, Indonesia, and India as well. So across the world, we've been working for more than 30 years. In India, as Mr. Ajit mentioned, we've been working for about 20 years. So as you know, as we start, I would like to show you this particular picture. This is the picture of Pondi Bazaar before we started working here. And I'd like to ask you all, what is it that, this particular picture actually resonates with you? What are the kind of thoughts that you probably get by seeing this particular picture? And if you have some thoughts, it'll be great if you could even write, one second, sorry. It would be great even if you all can write in the chat box about what you feel. To me, it was about, there's space for people to walk, but I'm sure it's been quite uncomfortable for people to walk. The parking is actually quite unorganized. And this was all about what the street is. Now, this is not about just a street in Chennai, but this is the case of many, many streets in Chennai. And the whole concept of creating better streets is that such a street, when transformed into a space like this, where there's enough space for all the different users to all the different uses to happen in a very seamless manner, which is very well lit, where women can also feel safe at dark, where children, as you can see in the picture itself, a young toddler is walking around quite confidently, although slightly towards the back of this particular picture. So as we change each street in ensuring that it's useful, not just for a select few, but also inclusive to all different types of people, and such a way that our streets are safe and vibrant. And in fact, once when we were going to the site of the transformed street, we noticed that a young couple were getting their post-wedding photo shoot taken on the street, because now the street had become really better, that it was attracting different kinds of crowds of people. So what I'd like to say is that the essence of my presentation is that if we start making each of our streets better, one by one, we can actually create much better cities, and which are very livable and places that all of us would be very, very proud of. And today I'm going to share the story of Chennai in this particular experience. So what was this journey of transforming Chennai streets is the essence of this particular presentation. And sometimes many people ask me that, you say you've been in Chennai, or the organization has been in Chennai for more than a decade. And why is it that it's taking you all so long? So when we first came here and when we started speaking to people, like in Tamil Nadu, and we looked at, what is it that you see on a street? Most essentially, the officials also tell us that there's a lot of congestion. It's very high with traffic. We have more than 30 lakh registered vehicles, and we really want more and more space for them. Like, can we widen our streets? What is it that we can do to ensure that we can give more space to the vehicles that's there on our streets? Now, when we stepped out and started walking on the streets and speaking to people on the streets, for example, there was this a middle-aged a housemaid whom we had spoken to, and she said, "நான் என் உயிரை கையில புடிச்சு நடக்கிறேன்னா, நடந்து போறதுக்கு அவ்வளவு கஷ்டமா இருக்கு. வீட்டுல போய் உயிரா வீட்டுல சேருவேனான்றதே ஒரு கேள்வியா இருக்கு." So this is a question which was not only on her minds, but we also know with actual numbers that there are people, elderly people, who just leave their homes in the morning just for a walk and don't come back home because they probably died in an accident. And this was also similar with other people. For example, there were people who told us that they've been cycling for more than 40 years, yet no one actually notices the cyclists in our city, and they still feel it extremely unsafe for them to be on the streets on this particular vehicle. And when we started looking at the reports to see, like how many are there? When you look at the street, you see all of these cars, but what is the number of trips and what does that actually mean? The reports and studies suggested that only a third of our trips are actually by a car and two-wheelers. And in fact, the trips by cars are only 7%. And less than 10% of Chennai even owns cars. And 2/3 of the trips are by walk, cycle, or public transport. Yet, when our streets were being designed, they were designed particularly for the four-wheeler. All the other users and the uses were completely ignored. And yet, the cities across the world, like for example, if you went to Paris or to Netherlands, or even to global south cities, such as if you went to Mexico City or Bogota, all of these cities which people really enjoyed being there, it was enjoyable because everyone had space and it was not just prioritized for a marginal type of users. Again, like, I wish I could speak to you all because I'm sure you all would have a lot to say. When you see this particular image, I'm not sure what it actually makes you feel. Sometimes in the previous images, we had noticed that there were no sidewalks or footpaths. But in this particular image, you can see, like, it's fairly wide. But if you do see that it is interrupted, and hence it's such a hurdle. It almost is designed in a way to train us to become gold medalists in the Olympic hurdles race. You have to climb up and down, and it's just very difficult for people to use. So how do we transform all of this? And in such a situation, more than 3,500 people were killed in 2017. And this, I'm just talking about pedestrians. For your information, in Chennai, 4 people die every day, and out of which 2 of them are just people who stepped out by foot. So they were just walking on the street and they were killed. And that is the case of Chennai. Similarly, while there were road deaths, there were also other effects that this kind of infrastructure was having on us. 1 out of 5 of our kids were overweight. So obesity was rising even in our children. There were lifestyle disorders that we were facing. And all of this was the premise under which we were discussing about how can we transform our streets. And here, working with Chennai, we were working about how can we design our streets as streets for all users and all users. So whether you traveled or in a car, or whether you were a pedestrian or a cyclist or a bus user, you feel equally invited in this particular space. And also to have, the opportunities of sitting, speaking, playing, all of this in our streets was the aim of how we could create better streets. So these streets were looked as spaces which would promote walking and cycling, where it's not just what you see above the street. There's a whole world of uses that happens below the streets, such as utilities. So how do we manage them better, ensuring that they can be easily maintained? And how can we even make our streets like livable spaces where whether you are an 8-year-old or an 80-year-old, you still feel safe and happy to use this particular space. So what did the city do and what did we do to help them is what we'll take a look at ahead. So the first step that had to be done was to inspire champions and to build partnerships to take action. So most often our officials are very well-meaning people who really want to do right things. But unfortunately, sometimes they've been so away from the reality, they might not know what the issues are. Like tomorrow, if I asked Mr. Ajit, like what the issues of a cyclist in the city are, he may not be able to say because he's not a cyclist. And that's the same case with me as well. I might not know the problems of someone else if I've not done that before. So here, the person that you see in the blue and white stripes is the commissioner of the city. So we organized a walk in the city at peak hours with all the top officials of the different departments. You can see him struggling to climb onto a footpath in this particular picture. That is the commissioner himself trying to climb. And this is when he realized that the infrastructure in our cities, especially on some of the main roads, are really, really in a poor condition. And something needs to be done about it. And here was this is where things actually really started changing for us. Along with this, we also organized a lot of study tours because it's very important for officials and engineers to see the actual transformation. And when they see transformation elsewhere, that's when they get inspired about what is it that we can do in our own cities. And once this seed of change was planted in their head, it was very important for us to transform the inspiration into action on the ground. And here, when we first started working, we did not have budgets for designing of these streets. There was money allocated for implementation, but not for design. And hence, we came into a collaboration with a bunch of urban designers who decided to volunteer for the design of these streets. And here, if you look at these two pictures, this is Police Commissioner Road, and you'll see that it's a very, very simple thing. The electricity box, which is kept there, is perpendicular. So if you are walking, in the picture on your left-hand side, there's a high chance that you will go hit it. And that's the reason most people walk on the road and not on the footpath. So even though the city had actually put money into creating a footpath, it was unusable just because of a tiny flaw in design. And when the same thing was changed, if you can see on the picture in your right-hand side, when it now became parallel and when the sidewalk became slightly wider, it was a lot more comfortable for people to use that. So it's not just about putting the money, but ensuring that the design is right so that the end result is usable. And that's been the focus in the first set of streets that the city has designed. So here again is a picture of a street in Harrington Road. It is Harrington Road, and I'm sorry, the name is wrong, but this is Harrington Road. And here there are about 5 schools in this particular area. And the same image that you see here, where the children actually struggle to get out of the street, of their school and be safe in the area, you can just see how a small change in design has just changed the kind of activities that are happening in this space. Now with that space available, children were engaging in the space in a way that they had not engaged in the past. Here again, while this was on the, on one side of the road, this is on the other side next to Lady Andal, where again you can see children using the space and really playing and having fun in that space. This is a much smaller street. It is Raman Street in Tinagar. This was a place where there were very many young children who actually walked on this road. And by just creating a usable sidewalk, now you can see that these children are able to even walk independently. In many cases, many children to our corporation schools actually come by themselves and leave by themselves, and having the right infrastructure just allows them to be independent and be confident of moving around in the city. So this was the street that I'd shown you before, where we were all training to, become better at the hurdles race. But if you can see in the next picture, a small change by not changing the height of the footpath, or by not interrupting the footpath at regular intervals, and by making it continuous, now the quality of that footpath itself has changed. So it's not essential for us to make these monumental changes. Even small changes in design could do a lot of wonders to the space. So here are some examples of the pedestrian plaza images as well, of how the space had changed. Like if you could even see the tree, there were cases where the trees were kind of dying, but once the street was redesigned with enough amount of space provided for the trees' roots to also, grow well, the trees themselves were also used. So other than just people using the space, even for the landscape, it's very important when we design our spaces well. So here again is the Ramakrishna school, and you can see how the space was right in front of it. And you can just see how the children have used it once it is transformed. And the biggest, one of our best ways of seeing if the streets really have transformed is just looking at how children embrace that space, because they just come and really embrace spaces when they feel it's safe for them out there. While we've done these small pilots here and there, as all of us, I mean, with the Rotary Club, I'm sure it's no surprise, when champions change, projects might stall. Sometimes projects entirely get even reversed. So it's very important for us to ensure that any change is embedded. And the city adopted a policy called the non-motorized transport policy in 2014, saying that it will now engage in making its streets safer for all users year on year. And that was a great step, because every year then they were allocating budget for this particular transformation. And the value addition came earlier this year, where they adopted the Chennai's first street design guidelines. So Chennai streets belong to a whole multitude of people, like from the highways department to corporation. There are different departments that own our streets, and hence they tend to get designed very differently. So by the city actually adopting a street design guideline, now the aim is to try and make sure that all streets start following the same guidelines and hence become seamless in that manner as well. Now, as we started embedding these changes, it was also important for us to focus on institutional reforms and capacity building. The person you see in the center, the man in the black pants, I think everybody's wearing black, but in any case, right in the middle is the chief engineer of Chennai. And what we've done is we've looked at how we can have regular study tours to other cities in India which have done good work, so that the engineering core is continuously, inspired to make transformation. And in fact, this particular visit to Pune was a real game changer when it came to the pedestrian plaza in Pondy Bazaar. The design was actually going a little south. And that's when we said that it's very important to get the engineers and see some really good quality of work. And when we got them to Pune and showed them some really nice streets in Pune, then they came back and said, no, we're really going to ensure that the Pondy Bazaar Plaza is really top notch. And they made a lot of changes to ensure that the design was really of high quality. So this is something that we're regularly doing. And also, we also run formal capacity building programs. This is in collaboration with Anna University and Corporation, where engineers are regularly trained as well. Because for many years, they've been, sort of looking at only streets as just spaces for vehicles to move. So just to get the idea of all of these different uses happening, we've also been engaging in capacity building. And finally, last but not the least, is very, very important to look at community engagement and ensuring that whatever we do with the citizens at large, like each one of you as well. So I'm just going to use an example of Pondy Bazaar for this particular case. Initially, this was the vision that was set, and today, if you go, things are not exactly like this, but this is how we imagined that Pondy Bazaar would come in. And we had some public consultations right in the beginning. And there was a lot of pushback. There was a lot of pushback from the shopkeepers. In fact, they said that they will not open their shops if this design was implemented. And this was the first tactical urbanism intervention, we would say, which is basically using temporary measures to redesign, to show how the street can be after the design is. So we put some barricades, brought in some plants. We also put some activities, like there was music on the streets, etc., to show people how the change would be without actually implementing it. The second time we did, the shopkeepers were a little more comfortable with the idea, and there were a lot of negotiations that happened as well. One of the main issues that they said was that if we don't have parking, our shoppers will not come. So this was a perception survey done to understand how the shoppers come to this particular area, and we realized that more than 90% of the shoppers were very happy and they were actually looking forward to this transformation. So we had, these are the examples of sessions that we've had with the shopkeepers as well. And, you know, these sort of projects are always a negotiation. It's not 100% what the city plans, or it's not 100% what the, you know, like what the citizen at the end has. It's a negotiation where we come to a middle ground. And finally, as the project was implemented, like Mr. Ajit said, like even the shopkeepers have been very, very happy with the end result. And recently, in fact, yesterday, a journalist had called me and said that even in the Corona times, this street still seems to be bustling and there are people there all the time. And for all of these efforts, Chennai had has won various awards. This was the Sustainia Award that it won in 2015. And recently this year, it also won the Ashton Award. One of the major challenges, however, which I would like to share with you is that it has been about interdepartmental coordination. So when you do look at a street, you think of it as just being something that one agency owns. But unfortunately, there are a whole bunch of agencies that work here. Electricity lines are with the electricity department. The water lines are with the metro department. The street itself can be with the corporation or with the highways. The trees are managed by the parks department. So it's really important to work with all of these departments together. And that is a cause for these projects taking a bit of a long time, if I may say so, to be conceived and implemented. To share some upcoming plans of Chennai, now after completing 100 kilometers of streets, the city is looking at creating a city-wide network. And in the first phase, they're looking at 6 neighborhoods. And this particular project, referred to as the Mega Streets program, was launched earlier this year by the minister. And so these are the different areas that we're looking at. We're looking at North Chennai, Ananagar, Nungambakkam, there is Adyar, Velachery. So these are the different areas, and there are right now the inception reports are being created, and just some conceptual ideas are being evolved. What you can see on the left-hand side is some concepts that have been developed for North Chennai. So while you know, Marina has a lot of public spaces, and even as you come south, there are a lot of public spaces. In the north, the public spaces are much lesser. So one of the vision of the designers was to look at how the beach up north can also be converted into various public spaces, which can be accessed by the metro as well, because this area has very good metro connectivity. So this is what we've been doing in Chennai so far. And just before I close, I would just like to very quickly show you some of the national engagements that we're doing. So we recently just, as a part of the Corona crisis green recovery, we've launched one national challenge, which is called the India Cycles for Change Challenge, where we're looking at, we're inviting cities to look at the test, learn and scale methodology, where cities will come up with, will actually test a pilot on the ground and develop a proposal. And once selected, they would scale it up and they would actually implement it across the city. And it has been fantastic, because we were really worried and we were thinking that, you know, during Corona times, it's so difficult. How would cities have time for all of this? And when we launched it, this was just some images of the social media engagement that all of these cities had done. So from Agartala to Gwalior, you know, to Kohima to Sagar, there were multiple cities that embraced this particular challenge. And with that, the national government is now looking at planning another challenge as well, which is called the Streets for People Challenge. And the image you can see behind is one of Pondi Bazaar itself. And this is a challenge that focuses on placemaking and livability. And that's what has been keeping us going so far. And I hope that, by creating, by transforming one street at a time, we can really look at transforming our cities and multiple other cities across the country. Thank you so much.
Well, that was very fast. You didn't take even 20 minutes. That was extremely fast.
7:30. I'm sorry.
Right. Okay, we are a bit surprised. Okay, that was good, very informative, very quick. And I think Karthikeyan and our present commissioner, Prakash, have been very helpful. They are very friendly people. They have been extremely,
Yes.
and Mr. Shanmugam also, they are very friendly people. And I
Yes,
think
yes.
they help you a lot in this.
Yes, yes. And we've been working since Vikram Kapoor sir's time. So whether it's Vikram Kapoor sir or Karthikeyan sir, and in fact, Prakash sir is like
He's a
extremely
fantastic person. He's a fantastic person. He understands the difficulties. Yeah.
Yes, he understands things, and he's also into actual action on the ground. So he's not so much only about talking and research. He's more like, get it done and let's see how it can get done. And he would do anything that takes to reduce the challenges so that things can actually get done, which is also very useful, very, very helpful.
Now, the one question that comes to the mind is, see, the shopkeepers, initially they tend to, strict to some discipline. Then one guy takes over 2 feet of the foot space. And I could see one board already on the pavement, which was pointing out to a shop, almost 3 feet across, blocking the way. So how do you plan to prevent such kind of an encroachment, again, coming into the streets?
Sure. So with this pedestrian plaza, in fact, like one of the main things that we've been looking at is also looking at the operations and maintenance of these streets. Most often what happens is that corporation only focuses on the implementation of these projects. But when it comes to actual maintenance of these things, that's where things actually fall apart. So we've been we've been speaking to the corporation to hire a service provider whose main aim would be to ensure that this plaza is well maintained, and amongst many things would also be to ensure that it is enforced properly. Now, having said that, there might be a few issues here and there, but at the same time, if there isn't anyone to maintain the space or police the space in some senses, if I may say so, these spaces, like you said, would very easily get encroached by shopkeepers, but also, sometimes by vendors. Now, when it comes to vending, like you mentioned about, being inclusive to cows and buffaloes, even vending is a source of revenue for the economically weaker section, but it needs to be organized. When it is unorganized, they can actually take up the entire space, and then it becomes very difficult for others to use it. So managing this is a challenge, and I would not say that it's extremely easy to do this, and this is a constant challenge, and I think the corporation is sort of finding its own feet and evolving in this process.
Ashwati, I have a question. Ashwati, I'm Janaki. So regarding the road, width of the road, the Pandi Bazaar, there are pills they have filed. So now the traffic has been congested a lot because the platform is very big. What you have done is absolutely it's a remarkable one. But don't you think that the width of the road has been reduced a lot? So much of traffic congestion. I mean, leave that parking slot and all. It's a problem. So why did you choose that? The platform is bigger than the utility of the road has become very,
Yes, ma'am. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, now the pill, they have filed pill and all, the residents, because of this, the parking, the people, they are coming to the Pandi Bazaar, they are parking their vehicles nearby streets, opposite to their houses and all. The many associations have come out with the petitions. So why you have not measured that, the width of it, the utility, and because it's not a one way, this is now both ways, like. So
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Can I answer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, ma'am, actually in this particular street, there is a multi-level car park that is planned, which is meant for parking. Now, that car parking structure is taking some time, especially because the infrastructure that was meant to
No,
come in.
parking is a secondary, but width of the road has become very small, you know.
Yeah, so that, yeah, I'll come to that. So the thing is that, you know, when we all, like I was also mentioning, this is like years of our conditioning also, right, ma'am? Each of us are, you know, like all of us can definitely have our own views. But when we did the counts on that street, there were actually 3,000 people walking on that street every hour. This is video recorded information. Yet there wasn't any space provided for them at all. And as we travel, like if we travel to either like Singapore or any place, you know, like, and even when we go to places like Madurai, we notice that there are commercial streets in the city which are sometimes largely pedestrianized, and the city actually has about, you know, like thousands of kilometers of streets, and in that, like if 750 meters is given for people to walk, like, you know, like there was a feeling that that is perfectly fine. That if there are so many people walking on that street, it is fine to give them more priority, because when you're looking at like 10,000 kilometers of streets which are kept mainly for cars, this 50 meters, it's very, very, like it's like a drop in the ocean of streets that is there in Chennai. And
No, but my suggestion is for the next program, you can look into it, because there are already so many accident cases that have been recorded in Pandi Bazaar police station. You must be knowing about it, right?
ma'am, actually we map all the
No,
roads.
nothing wrong in it. No, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
because the pedestrian is one side, it's okay, but so much of vehicles inflow and out, it's going out. So you should think about it. Like now, the width of the road must be for the two vehicles, easily can go and come out.
Yes,
So
ma'am. So
for the next program, it's my suggestion, like,
sure, ma'am.
because now
Sure.
already you have done it, you can't do anything.
Yes.
It's over. The project is over, and I'm telling you, this is a suffocation they are feeling it. That's mine.
Sure. So like I was saying, for all of these projects, we actually have real-time counts of people, you know, of the vehicles that are going there. And we mapped every death that happens in the city. We have a map of all the places where we do have accidents. And the idea also is to reduce the speed of vehicles. And if the road actually becomes a little narrow, the speed of the vehicles also reduce, and hence it becomes safer as well. And if you do have some information of actual road deaths, like it'll be good for us to get it as well, so we can correlate and see if there's any discrepancies there, because we do work very closely with the police as well.
Thank you.
Ashwati, just one more question. One is we are all moving towards mass rapid transport system. We are moving towards metros, and we are not now focusing on cars or two-wheelers. So I think that should be the shift that is taking place, or the change of thought that is taking place. But my another question is, if we face one big problem with regard to this electricity. Whenever there is an electricity problem, the cable gets burnt or something. It's all underground cables, and they come and dig up the place, and then what happens? So how have you factored in both this electricity, then all these fiber optic cables, which are again underground, and then the sewer system and the water system? But particularly these two are the ones which give more problem: the telecommunication and the electricity. So how did you face that challenge or overcome that challenge?
Yes, Mr. Sujesh, I think this is a very, very important, it's a very, very, very difficult one actually. And like I said, this was one of the main reasons that projects were actually taking a lot of time, because it requires a lot of coordination with the electrical team, as well as with all of these different departments, especially for the utilities. So what we had done for these projects is to have regular meetings with all of these different departments, and we've looked at different kinds of ducts under the project for these different utilities. So in the past, what was happening is that there were a lot of lines running below, but even the utilities, like for example, electrical department would not know where the electricity line is running, or the water department would not know if this, if there are leakages, they would not know where exactly the leakage is, for example. So as a result, what we've done in, especially in the pedestrian plaza, is to create an overhaul of the utilities underground, where there are specific ducts provided for each thing. So there is a specific duct for stormwater. There are specific ducts for electricity. Electricity and communication cables can't come too close by because that there is a magnetic issue out there, ensuring that those lines are at the right distance. And now for the upcoming project, we're also looking at gas, because Torrent might be coming up with piped gas in the future as well. So we're looking at all of these different upcoming plans as well of the different departments and trying to bring them together. And again, like, it's not a very easy feat. It is quite time consuming, and also because multiple of these departments might get money at different times to do these different projects. So just because the corporation is interested in doing a street right now, while the water department might have a plan, it might not have money right now to do it. So sometimes there are these, like there's a need to bring all of this together, and these things also do tend to take some time. And in fact, getting utilities right also contributes to a large part of the project cost as well. That's quite heavy, and if not done properly, sometimes trees might tend to fall, etc. So it's a very tricky part, and we're really trying and hoping to ensure that we get these things properly. Like we've been quite successful in the pedestrian plaza. Like I've shown you the images of the different ducts, and also the different pits that they're provided for their maintenance as well, such that people don't have to dig up, but through these different manholes and pits, like, people would be able to resolve the issues as well. So that's the plan. And that has been successful in other cities like Bangalore, where Bangalore's done the Tender Shore roads, and in Pune as well. And we're looking to test that out in Chennai as well.
So, can I ask? Yeah, may I ask a question? Yeah, this is IPDP well known enough among various departments? Can you just pick up the phone and ask somebody? That's and talk to them. Number two, all your activities, let's say all the road transformation and the Bondi Plaza, must have required a lot of pulling down of structures, isn't that so? Existing structures must have been pulled down to create more space. Has that been a problem, and did you get enough cooperation? And another question is, you have similar plazas coming up, or is there a plan to build another plaza in Velachery, I think, Velachery, and what's the plan?
Sure. So like, we can't pick up the phone and call departments to get things done. That's not how it works. You have to go to the departments, sit outside, offices, and get things done. If it was so easy, we would have probably transformed the whole of Chennai by now. We do need to, like, actually go to each of these departments. And sometimes some people, like Sujeesh sir was saying, like, there might be one champion maybe in the corporation, but that's not the same. Like, the highways secretary, for example, I'm just giving an example, he might not just understand the concept at all. So you might have some champions, you might have some people who don't buy into the concept. So there's a lot of building support that is required. And like Janki ma'am also mentioned, like, there are various viewpoints, and everybody who is right from their perspective as well. So to bring a consensus does take a lot of effort and time. That is with respect to the first point, sir. With the second one of actually, bringing buildings down, we've not looked at bringing any building down, but we've actually only been focused on ensuring that the right of way, or the distance between the space between one compound wall to the next compound wall, is most well utilized. And that's been the focus at our end. And like, one thing that I might say is that, for example, like, we sometimes, when we eat too much and over a consistent amount of time, and if we feel that, oh, like, I am putting on weight, our approach is not to buy, our approach generally is not to buy a pant which is a larger size, because we cannot lose weight by just buying the next size. If you want to lose change, you have to really change your habits. Like you have to change from eating junk food to healthy food. And that's the same with designing cities. If our street is congested with cars, we cannot demolish buildings and widen our street. It'll have more cars will come in. There will be more pollution. Pollution is affecting each one of us. And during the corona crisis, it's really, that's what, like if you have bad respiratory problems, etc., it makes you more prone to these sort of issues as well. So we really need to change our approach. And like Mr. Sujeesh very clearly said, like, you know, we're moving towards using more mass rapid transit systems. We have a metro that's coming up. We're looking at overhauling our bus systems. We're looking at how the initial last mile and first mile connectivity can be made either by walk or cycle. And that's been the approach. So we've not been looking at bringing buildings down, but to keep them and see how the space outside it is as useful as it can be. And I think, sir, you had a third question. I'm sorry.
Are there similar plazas coming up at other places?
Yeah. So again, like I was speaking to Janki ma'am, who had raised the question. So there is a program that's coming up in 6 neighborhoods, like I said. So there's Velachery, there is Ananagar, there's Adyar, there's North Chennai, which is Tongyarpet area. There's also Nugambakam and Mylapore. But it wouldn't be right to say that, you know, similar Pondi Bazaar-like plazas would come there as well. It would depend on the character of that space, the way, the kind of, you know, like in Pondi Bazaar, it was important because we had 3,000 people walking per hour as shoppers. And hence it was important to create this sort of an infrastructure. But for Velachery, the needs might be different. For example, in North Chennai, because the beach is there, which is completely underutilized, the architect's idea was, or the designer's idea was about how can we make this a public space or a destination that people can access. And similarly, you know, in each of these areas, there are very, very different ideas that are coming up. And if you look, like, you know, even when you go, like, for example, if you go to London or if you go to Singapore, there would be, like, you know, the India town, the China town, or if you go to New York, there's the Canary, or like, you know, you speak about like Canary Wharf. So there are these different spaces with very different character. And the idea of the urban designers is to look at the culture that is there in each of these areas, because Ananagar is very different from Velachery, very different from Mylapore, and Adyar is very different as well. And to see what sort of opportunities these spaces might have and provide solutions that are useful for these areas. And here again, like also like ma'am pointed out, Janki ma'am, we're also looking, we are constantly mapping all the accident black spots as well, in order to ensure that each of these spaces are also safe for people, for all the different kinds of users. So I wouldn't say that they are not coming, but I wouldn't say clearly that this is exactly the thing that's coming. There are a whole host of new public spaces that is coming to Chennai, I could say so. And we're also looking to have the inception reports and the ideas being put up on their websites, on the corporation's website, so that it is accessible to everybody and people can give their views. This is a conversation, it's a dialogue that's happening right now. And I hope that happens. And when that does happen, you know, we'll ensure that there's enough press about it so that people know that they can go here and see about it and comment about these upcoming, you know, programs as well.
Okay.
We can take one more question. Yeah, we can take one more question. Yeah.
See, I was just wondering, see, you've been here in India for a long time, so must be having a lot of good case studies. How can this whole thing be accelerated at the national level? It's maybe instead of just taking a few cities, how can it be done at 200 cities, 20 different places? It's all happening at the same time. How can that be accelerated? Is any discussions going on with the central government or with any of the state governments concerned?
Yeah, and that's a fantastic question to close at least my conversation, and that is where you know, the national challenge that we're working on, the Streets for People and the India Cycles for Change challenge has you know, really like kick-started, because in the first challenge, the National India Cycling for Change Challenge, 95 cities have registered. And this particular challenge, while in the next 2 months, we will be selecting the first 11 cities which have the best designs. It is a rolling challenge where all the cities' designs would be improved so that by the end of the year, all of these 95 cities have created their pilots and they're also looking at scaling it up. And similarly, the challenge that we're launching next, which is the Streets for People challenge, will again be thrown open for 140 cities. So these are all the 100 smart cities, the capital cities like Delhi, Bombay, all the capital cities of the states and union territories, and also cities above 5 lakh population. So all of this put together are 140 cities in India, and these are the cities which actually have the capacity to deliver as well. And this is what these two challenges are open to this set of cities. And once they come in, we in fact have workshops for them every 3 weeks with very clear deliverables as well. And that's been working very well for us with the India Cycles for Change challenge, because it's not like we're just letting them be and do whatever. We're giving them very guided, like step-by-step processes that the cities can embrace and deliver on as well. And we really hope that with this is a program that we're running with the National Smart Cities Mission and the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. And through this, we really hope that we can create a much larger transformation. And we're also hoping to sort of look at embedding this with a national act, National Mobility Act as well, which would hopefully then ensure that across governments, this change would continue to catalyze.
Well, before I call upon Lieutenant Bina to propose a vote of thanks, I have missed out on 2 announcements. Last Sunday, we had the installation of the Rotary Club of CEG. And it was very